Hello.
Hey Jojo, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. Uh,
Good.
it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Nope. I've been interviewed lots about HT, so I'm totally comfortable.
Okay,
And the
okay,
energy is comfortable right now, so that's good.
great, great.
Sometimes I come and then there's some ladies that are just like, all right, so this is and I'm like, okay, 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 I'm gonna fly with you. I'm with you. I'm with you.
I'm an energy healer, so I know about the nervous
Beautiful.
system and I know to let's regulate ourselves and not get all ramped up because
Mm-hmm.
it is a topic that can activate your system very much so.
Yes.
I'm going to do my best to keep myself grounded.
Okay.
You know how to do it for yourself. Yet just grounding ourselves, because I'm very mindful too of the reaction what the listeners are going to feel, and anybody
Right.
that triggers anything. Being mindful of that also, yet also
Okay.
giving them pointers. Just pause. If this is bringing up too much in your system, please
No,
pause. Don't put yourself
absolutely.
through all of that, and come back when you feel you can handle the context.
Perfect. Absolutely.
Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, where we break mental health stigmas through conversations. I'm your host, Nat Nat, and we dive into topics about trauma and how it impacts the nervous system. Yet we don't just leave you there. We share insights and tools of self-care, meditation, and growth that help you be curious about your own biology. Your presence matters. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. Help our community grow. Let's get into this. Oh, and please remember to be kind to yourself.
Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, Jojo. I am so thankful you're here with me.
Thank you very much for having me. Nyawa.
I'm looking forward to doing a deep dive into a subject I think is too much in the shadows, and there needs to be light, and we need to normalize the conversation. And so, for some of the listeners, we're going to go into the subject matter of human trafficking. Therefore, there is a big trigger warning that some of the stories or the things that we share may activate some people. So, at any time that you may feel that your emotions are feeling too overwhelming or you're not able to control your behavior, please pause. Do not do a disservice for yourself to keep going into something that's activating you to the point that you don't feel like you have any control internally. And, take a moment to pause and process. Let yourself feel those big emotions that are coming up. Allow yourself to look at some of those experiences, to let go of those energetic charges that are stored inside your body. Healing doesn't mean that poof, it's all gone in your processing. It means that you have the tools to continue to process and no longer suppress and push things down. So I want to give you that warning, and I will continue to give the warning throughout the podcast, just to give yourself a reminder to do a check-in to see what's going on internally with the content that we're talking about. Jojo, would you be willing to come into a meditation with me so that we can ground ourselves in our breath and open up the space of dialogue?
Absolutely.
For the listeners, as you always hear my spiel, you might be driving or doing something with your visual. So please don't close your eyes. I want you to be safe and everybody around you to be safe. Yet the other prompts you're able to follow, even with your eyes open. So Jojo, I'll ask you to get comfortable in your seating, and you're going to gently close your eyes. And you're going to begin breathing in and out through your nose, bringing your awareness to watching your breath go in and out. There may be some sensations or feelings coming up in the body. Let them come up. You're safe to feel. You're safe to let go. Surrender the need to control. Release the need to resist, and just be. Be with your breath. Drop into the body. There may be some thoughts or some memories that are coming up. Don't push them away. Just let them pass through, yet keep your attention on watching your breath. And more sensations may be coming up also. It's creating a safety within your body to allow yourself to no longer resist and control. And stay anchored with your breath. Keep your awareness on your breath and go deeper into your body. Continue staying with your breath. Jojo, I'm going to ask you in your mind to create an intention you want to bring forth in this conversation and for the listeners. And when you've created that intention, I'm going to ask you to release it in your mind, allowing it to drop down into your nervous system, passing down through your throat, through your heart, through your stomach, and into your life force. While still staying with your breath, allowing that intention to grow and surround your energy force. Continue focusing on your breath and dropping deeper into the body, into the now. Now, while still staying with your breath, at your own time and at your own pace, I'm going to ask you to gently open your eyes while staying with the breath. How's your heart doing?
Good. It's good.
Can you let the listeners know who Jojo is?
Jojo is a very strong advocate for the Indigenous community here in Ottawa and in my 6 nations across Ontario and across the world. I portray myself as a safety net for women and men and children to come to me and ask for help and ask for safety or the resources for safety. I'm a grandmother. I'm a lone wolf 90% of my time. And I'm a person that thinks outside the box at all measures. I enjoy being a grandma and I'm a mother. And that's probably my most accomplishment and achievement in my life. Coming from nothing and building up to something in my life.
Beautiful. For some of the listeners, because this is international, can you name out the 6 nations so people have more awareness and can name things?
This is like the flag that's behind me. It's Onondaga, Mohawk, Tuscarora, Oneida, Seneca. Yep, that's all of them. Yep, that's right. Yeah.
I know, I love when I have to remember.
I'm like, I have to go to the boxes.
I say them all. I love that. So now your work, as you said, that you're a safety net, and I believe the crux of what you do is helping with human trafficking. Can you let us know what brought you into this field?
So that's probably the biggest confusion in the day. Like my daytime job is not my HT life. It incorporates in my HT life because of child welfare, right? But because there's conversations and there's do's and don'ts, and it kind of intertwines with that. But the life that I have outside of that life, I got to this position or this time in my world, in my space, is because building up the rapport probably a decade ago with some gangs here in Ottawa, and keeping keeping it safe, that I had a job to do and the police have a job to do. And at the time I was a youth counselor, youth worker, and I never tampered, I never invaded their space of what was going on with their lives. And that's how this, and when I look back, that's how this all rolled into what I do now, because of knowing the boundaries of an officer, community, individual, and what's going on in that person's life at that time. That's how this all snowballed. And as a decade later, some of those people have progressed to doing what I do now, which is terrible, but also have progressed to help us because of their life choices. They can be a positive and they can be a negative in this world of HT.
Okay. So can you let the listeners know what your daytime job is?
I'm an ED, I'm an equity, diverse, and inclusion worker for the Ottawa Children's Aid Society, and I'm also the activator for the TRC through the Child Welfare League as a part-time job, and I'm the HT liaison for Akwesasne.
Well, that's a whole lot there, Jojo.
And then I volunteer for what we're talking about today.
Okay. So what is it that you do with the HT? How do you, in this past decade, how have you built this community and this safe net and the work that you've done?
In the beginning, it was just walking in our own community here in Ottawa and making sure that the women that were working the streets were safe, because prostitution is completely different than human trafficking, and people's choices and consent is a whole other topic and dynamic. I just started walking and seeing the loopholes, and then seeing people, getting picked up and dropped off. It just, again, I'm going to use the word snowball a lot, because it went from just walking and being a community member, being out there on the streets, making sure, the homeless were taken care of. It's all the dynamics of the homeless and prostitution and being out in the community. And then seeing a very, very big jump once COVID hit, where a lot of people were not out and being inside, and then being transported, and then being transported out of the city, and then communication through other territories and the wonders, and then me moving to the north and then seeing it verbatim, openly, not hidden. And I'm like, and then again, having that tool, knowing that there is officers to protect and serve our communities, but that doesn't always go the right way for Indigenous communities because of the lack of trust, right, in our history. And then people and communities thinking that I'm a safe person to talk to and getting resources, and then that's snowballing into resources, and then seeing the dynamic of, this person's ending up in a different territory, or this person's ending up, in Belleville, Ontario, or Montreal, and then them calling back and making the linkages to find safety, or find that safe person to call to get them out of that situation. And then it has enormously snowballed into something that, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, I wouldn't have probably thought I sit here now going across the world from that snowballing in 5 years. That's how fast it is. It's $160 billion monument every year. But you have to understand that it's the second largest besides the drug trade. And it happened in 10 years. Not 25, and the alcohol coalition back in the 40s. It's like 5 years, boom, $160 billion industry.
Mhm.
And as you see in the media, there's people that we have admired and listened to and watched for decades now being a part or linked to some of this activity, right? Which is eye-opening to me. And it happens everywhere. Like, I have progressed in where I thought the norm would be to places where I'm like, seriously, you want me to do what and go where and dress this way because I need to portray something as this? It's everywhere. So
Yeah.
safety is my word always, because safety, it has to be illuminated in spaces everywhere for someone to feel safe. Boys, girls, LGBTQ community, everywhere.
Yeah, that's the mission statement that I have with the work that I do. My company's called Lift Oneself, and it's the nervous system needs safety. The only way it's going to regulate is with safety. And to do healing, you need radical honesty. And so if there's no
Absolutely.
safety, you're not able to be honest. And once you can start developing honest, you can start having trust with yourself. So safety needs trust, and to be able to open up, you need safety is always in the crux of anything if you want some kind of change or transformation.
Absolutely.
I may have gotten ahead. So can you give the definition or explanation of HT? Because automatically people think HT is always attached to sex, where that isn't the case. So could you give a definition of HT and the work that you do with HT? Like, is it a broad spectrum or is it only certain parts of it?
Well, there's going to be the textbook version of HT, but ours is consent, right? And section, and then there's the ageism, right? The ageism brings it up. There's organ human trafficking, there's sexual trafficking, and then there's human trafficking, and then there's, smuggling is completely different than the human part of it. And human trafficking has been around since, I always go back to, our first sex trafficking person in my world was Pocahontas, and that's been around since way in the 1800s. So human trafficking is consent. In my mind, when I go out, it's how old the person is. If it's a child, that's a whole other different ballgame. But if there's consent, and a person can be in a relationship thinking that they're in a loving relationship, but it's actually trafficking, and that's the grooming part of it, to enter into the trafficking part of it. So that's my Jojo version of it. When I go out and where I have a duty to report. My full-time job is a duty to report, so that's the child's always in my mind. Every child matters, no matter how old they are, because I'm an older woman. So, but that's my version of HT, and that's the definition that I go out because I know my duty to report, and also to keep my community safe. And with the vast majority of what's going on with our MMIP in our communities, that's another part of the consent and the way of working with the community when I sit with these women or men and they wanting to escape that issue that they're at right now.
Okay. So as you said, some of them aren't even aware that they're being trafficked because of the definition. And, once we understand trauma and what it does with the nervous system, that sense of belonging, wanting to be connected, not knowing that it's a very toxic and abusive relationship or partnership that you're in, and you don't realize you're being manipulated into doing things that you haven't even consented, yet it feels like you did because you want this sense of connection. What does that look like when you engage with those people?
After the fact or before the fact?
All of it.
All of it. Everybody wants love. This is how I do it. Everybody wants love. And in my world, poverty, when desperation sets in, right? And poverty sets in, you'll almost do anything for what you need in that moment, right? And the bottom line, everybody wants love in their world. So when you're finding love and that person sees that desperation for that person to need love, and they have the trafficking mind, it doesn't take a week, it doesn't take a month. These groomers are very well capable to stay in your life for 2 to 3 years until they get you to a place where you're so wrapped around the love part of that relationship that you don't know how to unwind what has taken place over a year, over 2 years. And now you're at a place where you're going to have to make those choices and either consent or not consent to those choices. When I end up with a person that wants out, first thing is, they're exhausted. They need to sleep, they need to rest, they need to eat, and they just need to be in their own space. I know resources, I deal with them every day. Resources want to get in and try to help. We're helpers. That's what we do. We want love. We want to help after someone leaves that world. But sometimes people just need to be, because they have never been in that space where they can just be who they are, wake up and open their eyes and let their bodies just be in the moment. And I know, blessings to the people that want to help, but they want to get in and they just need some time. They need time just to let their body meditate into their own selves for 5 minutes, like a day, a week, depending on the length of how much time they've been involved in that life. It really, you really have to listen to the voice of the survivor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for that reminder for people, because that's where I advocate also. It's like everybody wants to come in and rescue people, where it's like, there's a part where people have to be in a cocoon. And what I'm hearing is that cocoon, and that cocoon, the caterpillar has to eat itself. It has to go through goo, and it's very painful. And for these women or men coming back into their body, into safety of no longer being in this kind of treadmill of a life, it feels very daunting. It's very exhausting. It's very overwhelming. And they need that space just to process their own emotions without somebody telling them how it needs to look, what they need to do. Let them, like, I love your language of connecting back into the self. Like, let them find their way to come back home into their body, because they've been out of their body to be able to, navigate the environment that we're in. Like, there's some people that they say that they're trauma informed, and I'm like, okay, well, go one step further, be trauma, competent. Really understand what the nervous system needs, understand what trauma has done, and the separation of self and that worth, that vulnerability, and what these defense mechanisms have created. And, the journey that these individuals are going to have to go through is going to be a long, strenuous one. So don't come attack them with, okay, we're all, and it's like, stop trying to soothe people to soothe yourself.
Absolutely. There'll be a place and time for what they need to do, but sometimes, and it's, the statistics, and I'm not a statistic person. I don't really listen to them, because our MMIG statistics about how many MMIG or MMIP are missing in Canada, they'll never get the real statistics. Canada will never ever get the real statistics, because Indigenous peoples don't trust the police, so you'll never get the right how many people are missing. We know the truth. You can go around to every territory and ask how many people are missing and what's going on, but you'll never get stats wise, for financials, for resources, for monies. They'll never have the proper numbers of how many people are missing. And these women or men and children, we have to go that far down to children, will come into a space and time in their healing where they're going to miss what they were doing, and they're not going to know how to navigate how they're feeling, because they're missing what they were doing, and they know it's bad, but they're missing it, or they're missing that person, or they're missing those persons that were taking care of them, that were feeding them, that were clothing them. Yes, they had to do the unmanageable to receive those resources, but there's going to be a part of their heart where they're like, but I also miss it, and I don't know how to navigate those feelings. That's where the time and the space for those emotions to arise and those resources to come in at those proper moments to help heal those people. Or they go right back. And the one thing I've said to resource people and people across the world that want to be helpers, you're the face that they saw when they wanted that space and time to take that moment to heal. And they'll always be that person's face in their mind when they really want to exit. And they'll come back when they're ready.
Mhm.
And that's where safety is always my number one. I may be on the street tonight and not see no one, but I was on the streets 2 months ago and one person saw me and said, there she is again. You know what? I really want to go get some help. I'm there to talk to. I'm a phone call away.
Yeah, it's the biology. Once you understand, trauma, it's also too, it's like there's these chemical releases that happen in the nervous system. So the adrenaline, the cortisol, those become addictions. And all of a sudden, like you could have been very aggressive and arguing all the time, and then everything's fine, but you want to argue with somebody. You want to get into like a tussle with somebody, and it doesn't logically make sense because the person's really calm, but you want them to engage. Like, why aren't you engaging?
Mm-hmm.
Biologically, this is what's happening. So it makes it really confusing. And why do I have these feelings and sensations? Because logically, it doesn't make no sense. And it's
Mm-hmm.
allowing people to understand their biology. And that's what I do with my work, because it's like, I think that's the missing piece where you're
Mm-hmm.
not explaining biologically, this is why there's addiction. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is the avoidance of the pain. So it's there's these sensations that are coming up that you're going to have to ride the wave to better
Mm-hmm.
understand the depths of some emotions that you've never felt before.
Mm-hmm.
It's an
And that
avoidance.
person is going to say, when they come, I've heard this many times. It's so boring
Yeah,
to get normal.
yeah.
It's so boring. And I'm like, there's many different answers you can say to that. And then that's when, the Rolodex of resources and what the life can be like when the normal people step in. That's what they say. I'm using some people's quotes, of Rolodex of what normality looks like in a day-to-day life. If you're going to a job or if you're going to school, if you weren't in that life, in that game, in that life anymore, yeah, we look boring because they're not waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning. They're waking up at 4, and they have a hard life at night when the day-to-day people are sleeping at night to get ready for the next day, kind of thing. So there's a lot of emotions that come to the table to exit this life. And the stats say, it's 1 to 7 times before the person actually exits. So, and in our world today, it has transformed. Um, you know, it has transformed for generations of people now trafficking their own family members because of poverty being so high in our country. And that's very scary.
Can you open that dialogue so people can really understand what that means? Like, the work that I did, I was privy to a lot of information because I worked with the RCMP. So I got to see a lot of things that I couldn't share out because of the work.
Mm-hmm.
It could be as simple, like some people think these nannies that come here and that are working with families came here of their own will. And
Mm-hmm.
and it could be lawyers and doctors that have these nannies.
Mm-hmm.
You think everything is on the up and up, yet
Mm-hmm.
they are in a situation of HT. It may not be sexual, it may be just to help with the resource of the children, yet they have been brought over with, different trinkets,
Mm-hmm.
yet
Absolutely.
their life is not of their own. So could you
That's right.
open with that, really show what the different parts of
Mm-hmm.
HP can look like, especially here in Canada, because we're in Canada and people think, oh no, everything's okay. And it's like, if you only knew the shadows, like
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
I want you to really open up the space about Indigenous women
Mm-hmm.
because it is I'm like my nervous system's ringing off. I come from Sudbury.
Mm-hmm.
So there was, the language when I used to be young was that they were almost like an other type of people and look
Right.
at the alcohol and my question used to always be, well, why are they sniffing glue? Why are they drinking alcohol? Why are they not
Mm-hmm.
taking care, like what brought them to this space. And the adults would never talk about that. And me as a child would be like so enraged because it's not logically making sense for me. It's not spiritually making sense for me. And
Right.
then hearing, especially out west, when the farms were going on, even down by Niagara Falls too, there's other farms that go on, they're party farms or whatnot. Yet these Indigenous women go missing and nobody wants to say because they've been labeled of a certain standard that they're treated like other and not
Mhm.
human. So we don't need to put any resources. And it's like, that is a human being. It's not an Indigenous person, it's a human being.
Mhm.
So where is this othering?
Mhm.
I know I gave you a big context,
That's
so
okay. That's okay. So I could go right into the whole history, but that would take probably 3 or 4 days for us to get through a whole podcast. But I'm gonna say that maybe the listeners know about the history, and if they don't, then they can, dissect the TRC in Indigenous history. In my community, I'm saying as a 2024, I'm gonna put it out there. Our Indigenous women, I'm gonna label women. I'm not gonna choose to talk about men too much because that's just coming into effect. Like it's always been there, but it's really getting a hot topic now in our communities. Indigenous women can be all different colors of brown. So that's money to human trafficking people. And when trafficking can happen everywhere. And so let me go back. Trafficking can happen absolutely everywhere. I've been in hockey arenas where it's the boys that are the groomers trying to find the girls. Now let's take off the Indigenous hat for a minute, but there is Indigenous hockey players too also. But I've been in hockey arenas, I've been in dog parks, I've been in libraries, I've been in universities and colleges, I've been in the malls, I've been in the nail salons, I've been in the tanning salons. Like it happens everywhere. I've been in, the courthouses. I've been in PO officers' houses. With our history and poverty and systems that we've been up against in our time span here on Mother Earth, it's always been a commodity because we always been the other. And the flavor of the brownness has always been a moneymaker because we've always been less than. So now in 2024, because we can have different colors of brown, that's almost like a checkbox of how much a person may make in the human trafficking world, especially if right now, if that Indigenous person could also be labeled as a Black person, and then or a darker brown person, or a Chinese person or a Mexican person. That different shade of brown is money to those people that are selling our Indigenous women. The look, the cheekbones, the slanted, like it's all about the money and what that person looks like. Fat, skinny, tall, short, it doesn't matter. It's almost like a catalog of what they're looking for. Indigenous women, since the time of Pocahontas, have been up against systems to make themselves loud in a community so that we always say that we have to be twice as smart to get half of what everybody else has. So we have to put ourselves out there. And sometimes that fight is just too much. Something may happen. If we're going through addictions and we're on a path of sobriety, something happens in our world, desperation sits in. There's a thousand different reasons why this could happen to an Indigenous woman. And then coming up in the system, and not knowing where the resources are or a better life, or it is what it is. I'm just going to go do what I need to do to survive. That's the comments that I get from a lot of my sisters on the streets that of their individual stories. But then I've had right from the, A to Z, I had a good upbringing. I fell in love. I thought I was in love. And then 2 years later, it took the turn for the worse, where now he lost money, or he needed a car, or, and he asked me to do this for him, to drop this off, to drop that off. And then all of a sudden, it was dropping off at, at a bar, at a strip joint. Like, it just progresses simply. I want to use that word simply, because if you're in it, you don't see where the warning signs are until you get in it, where now, okay, go, go and strip, go do this favor, just be with this person, go out for the supper with this person. And then the sexual part comes into it. And that's what the consent comes into. In our world right now, Nat, we're at 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, where big money to purchase these babies are unbelievable. And Indigenous people, from a baby stage, are purchased so that they can be brought up in this HT world to just produce babies for the production of human trafficking. And babies are so, Guatemala, I was in Guatemala with the Indigenous peoples there, we're walking in the market and enjoying all the, the textiles in Guatemala. And, their gang over there picks up a 2-year-old by her pigtails and takes off on a motorcycle. And my reaction is, to run after them, because that's what I would do here in Canada. And then the police, pointing guns at me because I'm trying to help the mother get the baby back. Well, systems, let's bring it back to Canada. That system over there, well, the police were in on that because I would look like the perpetrator trying to help that mother get her child back. Well, the system must have been on it because I was the one that had the guns pointed at me, and not little guns, AK-47s pointing at me, helping the mother try to get the child back. So back to Canada, we don't trust systems. And if that's the only way that we're going to get help, is to vulnerably go into a system, that's where survivor mode comes into taking care of ourselves and doing whatever we need to do to survive. And when I say generational trafficking now, I can just use my city because it's Ottawa. We have a housing crisis in Ottawa. Groceries, gas is $2, whatever the heck the thing is right now. It's there. That's the talk of the town. People want to survive, and doing the untangible in a family, coming from a grandma to a mom to a daughter, or a son. It's survival mode, and that's the only way that we know how to survive. Not saying that sexual human trafficking is something that we have to do to survive, but sometimes we just don't know the outs because that's how we were brought up from the systems that we were already implemented in, right? And lack of parenting, lack of parenting and trust, and that all that history comes into a fact where survival mode comes into effect and what to do to survive. I'm gonna talk streetwise. People say my hood, my community here in Ottawa, it's a bad, dirty place, and I'm like, no, community really sticks together, and that's why we have what we have now. And our girls know people in our community to be safe places. It's when I travel outside my little community here and go, because human trafficking and sex trafficking are being hidden in beautiful mansions here in the city and outside of the city, and trafficking into Montreal, into, Toronto. The 401 highway is like, it's like I in my head I have a golden highway in my head where people are making so much money being transported nightly, and swapping out Indigenous girls into different cities is a gold mine. As I said in the beginning, it's $160 billion within 10 years. It's skyrocket that. And we don't trust, so we don't talk. And then when we want help, we know where to go to get help. I hope that's answered your question a little bit.
It has. And I just want to take a moment, because some of the listeners it hit me, I'm not shocked by things. I still get very touched by things. I understand that a lot of us want to protect our psyche and think that these cruel things aren't happening to children or to humans. And by doing that, you silence, and you're not bringing forth the healing. We have to talk about these things, and not in we just really have to talk about this to bring the shadows into the light. And it's very uncomfortable. So like I said, if something got triggered in you, because my tears were at the cusp, and I was, because I could really feel what that would feel like for a child and the heinous things that what is done to a child. And I understand that these are things that we don't want to talk about or we don't want to think about because we have to still function in our day to day. Yet, you know, these conversations still have to be had because all
Absolutely.
those victims are going through that, and then they don't have a space to be able to process their experiences. They don't have a voice that's advocating for them because people want to be, no, that doesn't exist. That doesn't happen. People are not doing that. And it's like, yes, it is.
One thing I do when I do when I present is I ask everybody to stand up. So usually there's big symposiums, 300 or 400 people, and they all stand up. And I said, you know, do a good stretch, get into yourself. And I'll say, if everybody will stay standing, who will stay standing for the next 4 or 5 hours while this presentation is going on, and do it completely naked, please stay standing. Of course, you're going to get giggles, right? And they're like, I'm not staying standing because I'm not getting naked in front of all these people. And I say, well, when everybody sits down and they get quiet, I'll say, how do you think that child, that youth, that young mom, that young dad, whoever, has to be naked and do the unmanageable duties to get food, to be able to go outside, to take a shower, and be told what to do, be controlled on what to do and how much they're going to get, and have to be completely naked for days on end? Because, like the famous movie Sounds of Freedom said, a gram of cocaine can be used one time, but in human trafficking, sex trafficking, can use a baby from 2 to 21, 5 to 10 times a day, up to the 25th birthday, 30th birthday. And that's where the skin tone and the ageism comes in, because a 21-year-old could look like an 18-year-old, could look like a 17-year-old. And that progress, that money keeps on flowing. When you can use that gram of cocaine one time and it's gone, but you can use that baby, that youth, 5 to 10 times a day at 500 or 600, 700, $1,000 per action, that's a lot of money. And keep that person captive from the ages of 2, 12, 10, till they're 20, until they're old enough or used enough that the person thinks that they're no good for anyone else. That's a lot of money. That person can be used and be naked and to perform the untangible acts every day of their life. So when they exit that life, they need to just be and breathe, just like your sign says behind you. Just breathe, because they haven't been themselves for a very long time.
Yeah.
People need to feel, because we go about our day to day, like every morning I get, and everybody goes on to it's happening in places people don't realize. Conversations need to be formalized every day, and awareness of what's happening where people are watching, groomers are watching. And it doesn't matter. We have a big shift right now because, groomers were always male. In the big world, groomers were always male trying to get the girls in. Well, that has big time shifted because our Indigenous boys are beautiful with their long hair and more money when they can look like a boy and they can look like a girl, right? You got to think as one of those people that are going to buy it. So that our Indigenous boys are a high commodity right now. But it's happening everywhere, that the age is lowering, and the awareness of protecting yourself and safety netting yourself no matter where you're going. Fentanyl is a big thing here in the Ottawa city. It's now liquefied, so you can put it in a water bottle to drug somebody. So our young people, coming to the city to go to school and to live that dream of going to school, going to university and living and going out with friends, and all of a sudden getting into, a bar and having that fentanyl put in their drinks, or that, and it's so Every space has a do's and a don'ts. That's how I put it. I'm so happy that the university, on Frosh Week, they have a night of city life, and I go in and talk and say, heads up where you're going, watch, go in packs. It's like the 90s version, go in packs, have your cell phone, know where your safety nets are. But now the traffickers have made us step up our tools to keep our young people safe and babies safe. I've been asked to go to schools where they're, the groomers are outside the schools with juice boxes and sandwiches and subs and phones and tablets and luring them in with that, like juice boxes. That's where poverty and desperation sits in. That's a whole other level of trafficking. And then to get to sexual trafficking, right? Like it's everywhere. That's why we have to have it in our schools big time for our little ones to know their do's and don'ts and who they can go to for safety and who their safety person is. High schools big time, because our young people want to fall in love and have that dream of being in love, right? But they don't want to end up in a different spot. And it can happen to any, the word status. I know people use status for status cards, but I'm talking about monetary status. It can happen to anyone with a different financial status. Anyone. People have to be aware of that. It's just not, I'm going to say this because I can. It's not the dirty Indian down in Vanier that's getting human trafficked or sex trafficking. It's happening everywhere. And our girls are not dirty. They're absolutely gorgeous and beautiful souls. But I don't want to have that label. It only happens there. It doesn't happen just here. I can say honestly and verbatim with the creator standing and all my ancestors standing behind me, our neighborhood has been very safe in the last 3 years. They get in and they transport them out because we have such a safety net of our people being aware of what's going on and our do's and don'ts in our community here in the Indigenous community in Ottawa. It's the other outside places that they're getting transported that need more education, and the cities and the loopholes. And it's our women that have taken a turn to being the groomers, because a woman can be such a neutral, a nature of love to another female. Like it's just a motherly thing. So the traffickers have really thought about, what, let's not put the man at the table, because now everybody's getting aware that's the man's buying up. So now they're putting our women in front of us and saying, you go groom them and get them in, because you can have, 3 or 4 girls can have a dorm and everything. You can have a dorm, you can have a house, you could be that grandma figure, you could be that motherly figure. But guess what? There's other denominations, there's other situations that are going on in the background that woman is portraying to be that nurturing person, and guess what? They're not. So we're finding that out now too, which is scary. Right? Who is safe? Who is safe in each community? No matter what color of the medicine wheel you come from, who's safe and who's doing it with an honest, humble heart, and who's safe.
Yeah. If you look at history, brothels were run by women, and it's the same principle. So it's that nurturing, that, oh, I'll take care of you, and feeling, okay, well, that mother in love, and you'll protect me, yet I'm going to have to do some things to earn that love. So it's real, like, it's really tapping into psychologically what grooming is, and the manipulation, and how predators understand when people are looking for that validation, wanting to feel belonging, wanting to feel worthy. They can vibe off of it. And so they know just to instill. And even, as you said, like, without lacking parenting, you could have had the parenting, all the love and everything else. These people have a charisma that is just spellbinding, and they know how to break you down.
That's right. They
And
go
that's
on
what,
the vulnerability of what you say. They watch everything that you do. And if you say no, your parents say no, where their in is. They find out where their in is and where they can capturize you and give you, that item or that affection that you need. And they soak that up so much till they have you. And then the next issue will come up. And if they say no or yes, or they latch on to the vulnerability that that you're desiring, that you want in your own life. And that's why I said I've gone to where there's juice boxes, right? Poverty, starvation, hunger. It's gone down to even that little peanut going to school from grade kindergarten to grade 7. People are tapping into that vulnerability, that kids are hungry today. It's all over the map, no matter what status that you come from. Because it could be a very poshy person and their parents said no, that they're not buying them the new iPhone 15. I'm just tapping into something that I know it's happening. And guess what? That boyfriend says, oh yeah, I'll go get it for you. They don't want to buy it for you, I'll go get it for you. What is the undertone of that purchase?
Mhm.
Do you know that person? I've sat with many families, many moms and dads yelling at me, but not in a hatred way. This person was in my house, Joe. I fed them. They went trips with us. I'm like, yep. They were here for like not a year, like 2 years. Yep. We went to hockey tournaments. We went to, yep. They were watching. They were watching on how you take care of her, what you do and you don't say no and yes to her. And that person was saving her because and they're like, we didn't even see it. Yep. And it looked like a boyfriend girlfriend situation that every teenager might go through, right? And they did it not for a month, not for 2 months, not 6 months, not for a year, but 2-3 years. And then that person, that young person is so entwined with drugs and what they're doing activities. Now, people go to school, go to jobs, and still are trafficked, right? I know that we want to bubble wrap our children. I'm a grandma, so I'm all for the bubble wrap. I'm like, if there's a Rona around here, I will buy all the bubble. But you know what? You have to think outside the box. You have to think outside the box to keep all of our children safe. And when I stand in front of any auditorium, I know that I'm Mohawk and people will call me Indigenous. I don't just stand for every child matters for the orange shirt. I stand for every child matters, no matter where you are on the medicine wheel. I stand for that because I've had all denominations across the board come to me for help and saying, is this happening? Yep. There's some do's and don'ts that you have to find. Like I said, even from the Frosh Week, I'm so happy that the universities and colleges, these people come to Ottawa to go to school and get an education for the next, the dream that they've always dreamt about. And they get into one place in the city, or outside the city, or latch onto a person in the city that is taken to them to a different denomination in their mind and what's going to happen in their world. And the families are not here. So I'm glad that the education part is coming from resources, from social workers to schools. It has to be in the schools. When I hear schools say, no, we're not talking about that, then guess what? You're putting people at risk all over the map.
Now, I know that this is activated because it's activated my parenting role. So not to, advocating is being aware, yet, like you said, the bubble wrap, if you do that to your child, you're not letting them be empowered of how to walk the earth, because you could pass away and there's nothing you can do when you pass away. So it's, okay, how do you empower your child? So what would be the do's and don'ts that you would give to parents? For me, what I see is always having an open line of communication. Like, no
Absolutely.
matter how triggering, no matter how uncomfortable, you got to take care of your own emotions to have that open space that they can talk to you about anything. And when they start getting in their teens, that becomes even more difficult. Yet if you don't have that open dialogue of hearing things and not pouncing all the time on every little thing, you're not getting the information that is needed to hear about who's this mysterious person you're not talking to or whatnot. So to empower the parents, not to get them to be helicopter parents and just, I'm going to watch everything, to be responsible for their fear. What would be the empowering of the do's and don'ts, and what can they do to facilitate empowering their children?
The school board, when they, 0 to 6, right? They're like, Joe, how can you talk about this at that age? You just have to make sure that it's being talked to at their level. Go to their level. talk about things that at their, like, hypothetically, Minecraft. I know that's a big thing with the small. Okay, well then Minecraft, the conversation around Minecraft, so they get their little minds around that. High school, you got to get right into the nick and cranny. Uh, I don't think there's no holds bar when they go to high school. I think after grade 9, I think the door is wide open, and I think the parents have to really sit with themselves and say, guess what? I have to get comfortable with myself because anything can be coming to my door at any given time. It's fearful when it's the 7s and 8s go to a high school and they're at a different, I think, level of the school, but they're still in that domain. I think at grade 7, we're going down. Like I said, the human trafficking is going down in age. I think grade 7, I think the doors need to open wide open. I still go to their level and their age of talking, but still get to the realism of it, right? And parents, be nosy Parkers. You're the parents. Because and this may sound very negative, but I rather having a bold conversation about what's happening in the world today than losing my child.
Mhm.
Right? I always think of that. Like, I think of that. I rather be blunt. I'm a very raw grandma. I'm a very raw mother. Always have been. And as my 2-year-olds grandchildren grow, I've told the parents I'm never going to lie to them, and if they ask me a bold question that they've heard on media, I'm telling them the truth. There's no fluff when it comes to this grandma anyways. And have the school have those conversations with their and with the parents, and be nosy, know where they're going, know who they are. I know it's 101 parenting, but we have to be a little bit nosier. Technology has taken over our children
Mhm.
at any given time. Not me and you can, we could Google the word facts. 10,000 things are going to come up, and we're thinking, just I need a factual point of something. We have our own motto that we're looking for, but now in our world today, facts don't mean the same thing as facts did back in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? We have to be that nosy parent. I know I'm saying bubble wrap, but parents have to step outside their comfort zone, maybe do some research on their own about what's going on in the world today. And when I say, and I really say, that it's happening everywhere, it's happening everywhere. I didn't think I would have to sit undercover in a library with really sweet looking men, boys and girls reading books, and grooms are in there, in the library because they go on the vulnerability. This kid must be lonely. They're in a library. They're reading a book. Where the heck are their parents? And they might be just there to get an education, to read up on dinosaurs or something like that.
Mhm.
They're there. They're watching. They're
Mhm.
always watching. Men and women, young and old. We have a heavy gang here in Ottawa. That's the 417 gang. That's from 8 years old to 18, because they're protected under the criminal code that they can't go to jail. So groomers are tapping into these young people to do their duties so that they can sit and be protected, and get the young people to do it. And young people love items. They love materials. They'll do almost anything. If they can't get it from us, they get it from these people. So
Mhm.
grooming happens at every single stage.
Mhm.
Um, it's everywhere. If anybody's listening to me, that's what I want. I want to be safe everywhere.
Yeah. I'm considered a radical parent because I've been one where I've allowed the twins to see things and we talk about it, not sheltering them and hiding everything. It's like the way the internet is and the way that they're intelligent to use the internet, trying to put all these blocks and trying to keep them away, for me, doesn't empower them to actually walk the earth and be like, wait, I'm not going to be so shocked, or I know to turn this off, or that something comes up. I'm not um immature about it. Like, I have some
Right.
empowerment in it, and I
Yeah.
understand this isn't for everybody. I
Mm-hmm.
just understand the way the world can be. I
Mm-hmm.
understand when you can get lonely, how people can take advantage. Like you said, here's
Yep.
all of a sudden there's some fentanyl in that bad boy, or they put some alcohol or whatever there
Yep.
is because of what they're leading you. I thank you for, you know, the work that you do. Any parent that's listening, I understand that this can be really overwhelming, because a lot of you, we don't want to see the evils, because if we did, we'd never want our children to leave our home.
Right.
Yet we don't even know that your children may not be leaving their home, but they're seeing evils on their PlayStation, on their phone. It's infiltrated a lot. And the thing for me is, oh, you're not going to lock yourself in. It's about being empowered and advocating and knowing the do's and don'ts of not getting here, not going there. If somebody's trying to do something, what do you do? Do you yell and look for help and everything else? And challenge things. Yet, and don't drink from this person, don't drink from that person. You're going to want to do certain things, to want to belong. And if you do something, come to me. Let me know about what it is, so that I can help you navigate through that. Because I was a teen at once. I had my shit storms of mistakes that I went through. So this isn't about going unscathed. It's about safety and protection. And that, the way some of these teens are doing, of using like a one person as a joke with the drugs and the beatings and stuff, like it's some kind of entertainment, is very frightening of where humanity is going, and
Absolutely.
how media is influencing that also. Like that is a dialogue that I know people are like, oh no, I don't, it's influencing. It is definitely influencing and showing that there is no more filters, and anything can go. Like when I see Toronto, I'm like, that place is Gotham City now. Like that's basically for me, Gotham City. And don't think that that can't come here to Ottawa, because there are things that are happening in Ottawa that, because we're a politician town, it doesn't make the news, because we have to uphold our embassies and our image and everything else. But I remember, the sweeps that would happen downtown to get the girls off the street when certain dignitaries would come. So there's things that are polished that they know about, but they're not given the resources to actually help, which can be very infuriating. Jojo.
And we have to remember that this is $160 billion industry. Welfare and ODSP are not paying for human trafficking, sex trafficking. Someone's paying for sex trafficking and human trafficking, and it's a lot of money. So people with a lot of money are the ones that are doing the purchasing, right? So even if we are in a politician town, it happens everywhere. So if parents want to get more educated and they're scared a little bit to step out of their comfort zone to listen to these conversations, tap into a resource or a health, someone that's doing human trafficking, like at a service that's has a human trafficking person that's working for them, a resource. Have a conversation, phone them up and say, can I just have a conversation about human trafficking and what should I do for my family, and the do's and don'ts, to research out that, so they can get that, they can have that conversation with their child.
Now, because your work is very heavy all day long, the daytime work to the side to the volunteer, what does your self-care look like, Jojo?
It's very powerful. I'm a very balanced person, and I'm totally in tuned with my ceremonies that I have done to do my own healing in the last 51 years. I know when I'm tapped out and I need to take a break. I know when I need to go to a hallowing ceremony. I always think of my temple, my body, that I will start with my baby toe and I will go up to the top of my head. And once it hits the top of my head, I need to recharge my batteries. I know when to sleep. I know when to take a breath. I know when to meditate. I know when to go pray. I know when to go walk. I've taken the last, as it's progressed, I've taken the last 5 years to progress on how to keep balance and how to keep myself very, very well taken care of, from the top of my head to my baby toe.
And I can hear all the different modalities that you use, so you really understand to serve your needs of all the capacities, spiritually, physically, emotionally, and psychologically. I just want to ask on the point of when your heart is broken because of some of the information that you have to, process, or the people that you have to go, what are the steps that you use, or what are the modalities that you use to be able to process that for yourself?
It's helping somebody get out of a situation. Now, I'm taking this as the context as a person from 18 to 25, out of a situation that they may not see that light at the end of the tunnel. When it's a child, my mind will go into a different probably format because it's a child, right? I'm a grandma at the end of the day. I can't take that hat off. I'm a mother at the end of the day. I'm a helper in my community at the end of the day. Protecting a child is I think that's my legacy in this world, is to protect children, no matter where they come from. I can't say that my face doesn't change very, very much bolder when it is a baby, and my baby head is under 18. But my howling ceremonies are very, very powerful, to where my nose has bled. A migraine has formed right off the bat because I need to exit all of those negativities in my body and keep my energy to a very healthy color of my aura. Has it gone to that where my eyeballs have bled? Yep, it has. I've done a big tour in Arizona for the Hopi Nation in Albuquerque, New Mexico, for the Indigenous people down there, and that was probably the most powerful 2 weeks of my life that I will always be there to help them. But it was probably professionally the most powerful 2 weeks I've ever had in my life, seeing this disgusting way of people's lives trying to torment our young people, our Indigenous people of the States, and babies. So I had to let go of that negative energy in a very, very high ceremony. And I had to come back down where 2 to 3 days of silence was needed after coming back from a ceremony, just to get myself back into my own Jojo space.
Thank you for giving that, because another part where I do in my work is befriending anger and befriending rage, and that we can have a healthy relationship with it, not tabooing it, and it's not supposed to be here. It's like there's some things that you see in this world that needs rage, and you need to express it in a healthy way to be able to release. So the howling is, when some of my clients, when they're going through really extreme experiences and there's flashbacks, I'm like, take a pillow and start yelling in it. I know you don't want to offend people with that loud expression, but that pillow will help you do that expression. So let it release.
Absolutely.
Where can the listeners find you?
If they want to reach out to me, they can call. There's my daytime job. I'm at the Ottawa CAS. I'm only one Jojo there. The nighttime job is pretty on the DL, because we only have certain people that know, and it's Indigenous communities that really reach out for us. But my daytime job, I'm always here to help, ask questions. I'm the EDII worker, so equity, diversity, inclusion. It's questions, and I can just give them resources. That's my whole domain. So anytime they can they can give me a call at the Ottawa CS. That's no problem.
Okay. I want to thank you for, being such a powerful light in this world. And really holding space, being in that void and creating that bridge for so many to cross over. And, being that safe space that even when they go back to, the past, they still are accepted in the present to create another future. So thank you for that, Jojo. It's really, really appreciated. And this has been a very in-depth, and I am so enriched by being in your presence and feeling your energy. So thank you so much, Jojo.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored.
Please remember to be kind to yourself.
Absolutely. And thank you.
Hey, you made it all the way here. I appreciate you and your time. If you found value in this conversation, please share it out. If there was somebody that popped into your mind, take action and share it out with them. It possibly may not be them that will benefit, it's that they know somebody that will benefit from listening to this conversation. So please take action and share out the podcast. You can find us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under Lift Oneself. And if you want to inquire about the work that I do and the services that I provide to people, come over on my website, come into a discovery call, liftoneself.com. Until next time, please remember to be kind and gentle with yourself. You matter.